deep in Cockney land, who created that musical "Oh What a Lovely War" about the First World War. Ironically, "Oh What a Lovely War," and if she was around today, she'd probably say, "Oh what a lovely lockdown," without being disrespectful to people who suffered during the lockdown in one way or another. But remember, in the middle of the lockdown, or well, part of the lockdown, weather-wise, it was wonderful. If you had a garden and everything, there was so much sunshine during the first lockdown, that is. And now the World Meteorological Organization has announced that it expects 2020, this year, this really difficult year for us, to be one of the three hottest years on record, just behind 2016 and 2019. That means that the warmest 6 years on global records, or in global records, dating back to 1850, have now all occurred since 2015. Isn't that amazing? The place that saw the most notable warming was the Siberian Arctic, where temperatures were 5 degrees centigrade above average. But it's not just a warmer Arctic that's a problem. Hotter summers and heat waves are having their own very immediate impact. Heart or heat-related deaths amongst older people have more than doubled in the UK since the early 2000s, according to a report in The Lancet. And the review of the impact of the changing climate said heat-related deaths amongst the over 65s rose to 8,500 in 2018. Let's speak to Dr. Patrick Brown, though, who's Assistant Professor of Meteorology and Climate Science at San Jose State University, stateside. Dr. Brown, appreciate your time. We've seen firestorms in California, of course, where you are, a deadly fire season in Australia, a record number of named storms in the Atlantic. 2020 is going to be a record-breaking year for all the wrong reasons, it seems.
Yeah, that's right. So we have our own analysis of global temperature, and we still give 2020 a shot at breaking the global temperature record, but it will probably still be below 2016. So that's the big headline number, and that's essentially the Earth moving into a new temperature regime that you mentioned 1850 was when the records go back to, but when we look further back in the paleoclimate record, we don't think that we've really been in the temperatures that we're expecting to see in the coming decades since 120,000 years ago, so since the Eemian period. So this is really a new climate that we're moving into, and so we are seeing a lot of shifts in various weather patterns, and as you mentioned, things like fires, because this is not only kind of a new climate that we haven't experienced before, but we're also moving faster than previous climate changes. So this, for example, is about 10 times faster climate change than what we experienced coming out of the last ice age.
And there can be no other reason, can there? There is the Earth is moving into a new dimension or paradigm of temperatures.
Well, what did you say? What was the question?
No, I'm saying there can be no other reason than to conclude that we are entering into a new kind of paradigm of global temperatures.
Yeah, exactly. And we see that, locally with heat waves increasing, as you mentioned, and that has repercussions to human health and to, for example, crop yields, that we see crops really suffering when they spend more days above 30 degrees Celsius. And so that's the type of thing that we are seeing more and more of as the Earth gets warmer.
Is it going to get worse before it gets better?
Yeah, definitely. So the problem is we are putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere through burning fossil fuels, so coal, oil, and natural gas. And those just accumulate in the atmosphere. And so what we've been doing is each year we've been putting more than the previous year into the atmosphere. And so each year it just accumulates more and more and more. So first you have to stop putting more than the previous year into the atmosphere. So that would be kind of a leveling off or a plateauing of emissions. And then you need to get emissions down to essentially zero, to close to zero emissions. So that's why you'll see that term net zero in a lot of policy prescriptions for global warming, is that you want to be, net zero by 2050, net zero by 2070, something like that. And that means switching out all of the infrastructure that we have that burns fossil fuels to create energy, and switching that out to renewable energy. So wind, solar, hydro, nuclear, anything that doesn't emit CO2.
And that is the aim of many governments around the world. Certainly, the British government, which wants to be, a leader in this, is hoping to reach zero net emissions by 2050 in the next 30 years or so. But if things are going to get worse, how should we prepare for that between now and then? If they're successful over the next 30 years, how do we prepare for that? Will this mean more deaths, more bushfires, and that kind of thing around the world?
Well, we do see a very strong, relationship between essentially development and infrastructure and protection against these things. So when we look, statistically at crop yields or deaths due to heat waves, it's much worse in poorer countries. So we can definitely adapt with the proper infrastructure. So obviously, air conditioning for people that are sensitive to heat waves helps a great deal. We're going to need to build seawalls as sea levels rise. We're going to need to, invest in technology that makes crops more drought resistant, more heat resistant, that type of thing. There's definitely hope on that front. Like if you look at crop yields historically, although temperatures have been going up, crop yields have also been going up because so far technology has outpaced the detrimental effect from climate change. So it's not an apocalyptic forecast necessarily. We can get our emissions down to zero over the next several decades, and we can. Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it there. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Dr. Patrick Brown of San Jose State University. That's it from us. Thank you.